Hello, my beautiful tribe. Welcome back to First Impressions with Angie. And today I'm going to be doing some Sabaton history. I recently reacted to Sabaton singing live at Sabaton Open Air their song Carolus Rex and or Carolus Rex. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Um, and I also reacted to Eric Gronwell and Tommy Johansson doing a cover of that song, which was incredible. So I thought, well, I mean, you can't not find out the history, of this story. So I thought, why not share it with all of you? So we are going to watch together. It's Sabaton history, and it is the story of Charles the 12th of Sweden, which is what the song Carolus Rex is based on. So, and this is nice because we get to do this as a premiere, and I'm in the live chat. And hopefully, all of you are also in the live chat with me. So I would love to chat with you in real time and get your thoughts on this. I love Sabaton, and I love history. So it's a no-brainer, And I love that they have the Sabaton History channel. It's so well done. So without further ado, because it's definitely a little longer than the songs that I react to, but let's go ahead and get this started and learn this story from Sabaton history. So here we go.
He was the king who inspired an album.
Actually, two.
The king who inspired two albums.
Carolus Rex.
All embrace me. It's my time to rule at last. 15 years have I been waiting to sit up on my throne.
The history of Sweden is in many ways the story of her kings. Since the founding of the modern Swedish kingdom, with the reign of Gustav Vasa and his magnificent beard, the course was set by the will of the monarchy. Breaking free of the shackles of the mighty Denmark, Swedish kings subsequently sought to enlarge Swedish might, with dreams of a new Scandinavian empire, a Dominium Maris Baltici, in the north of Europe and across the Baltic Sea. Sweden realized its imperial dreams and expanded its borders towards Estonia and Livonia, and established a strong Swedish presence on the northern coastline. This, of course, attracted the attention of equally ambitious neighbors. And as it always was with the dreams of mighty dynasties and noble houses, their ambitions were soon accompanied by conflict, competition, and war. Each Swedish king inherited the enemies and animosities of the past. Sweden had already crossed swords with the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and with Russia, but it would be King Gustavus Adolphus' involvement in the 30 Years' War that set the empire on what would be a downward spiral in the long run. Although he would be the lion from the north, the savior and champion of Protestantism, his religious crusade had reshackled Sweden to a foreign cause, this time to that of German kings and dukes. With her commitment to the war in the Holy Roman Empire, Sweden missed her historical chance to build an empire on the Neva, and instead made powerful enemies. Denmark, Poland, Russia, Saxony, and Brandenburg were all soon eyeing Swedish expansion with increasing suspicion, waiting for a chance to pounce. Sweden's historical weakness was her place on the map, and the overseas possessions outside of Scandinavia were a nearly impossible task to defend. Sweden could field a mighty modern army, sure, but its population was small and the economy was reliant on highly competitive maritime trade, so Sweden was vulnerable. One political misstep, one fatal defeat on the battlefield, and the empire could be shaken apart. In many ways, it was a colossus on feet of clay. The second half of the 17th century brought these weaknesses to light. As Sweden's enemies backed her into a corner, more and more the nation had to rely on the wisdom and the courage of its kings and the strength of its armies to keep it alive. Notably King Charles XI, Karl den Elfte, who through ruthless land reclamation laws revitalized the country, rebuilt the army, and established a military caste that was deeply loyal to the king. With tireless ambition, he saved Sweden from the brink of collapse, but in doing so, he allowed Sweden's monarchy to become one of the most absolute in all of Europe. On June 17, 1682, his heir was born. Named after his father, the young Prince Karl soon proved himself to be a child full of promise and potential. His strong, stubborn character both impressed and unnerved those around him. It was said that once Karl made a promise to himself or to others, he would never stray from fulfilling it. If he was set to a task, it was nearly impossible to dissuade him from achieving his goal. Karl's father had lived a Spartan life, one that his son would imitate. The king had rejected every sort of luxury and regarded sloth and frivolity as the greatest sins a man could have. He taught his prince to be a merciless lion to his enemy and a generous lamb to his own people. But it would be Karl's mother, Ulrika Leonora, who taught her son the values of honor, piety, and charity. Although he would be a king to his people one day, in front of God he was just a simple man, a sinner like everyone else. Karl is said to have prayed at least twice a day and never missed religious service in his life, even in the field. In a way, King Karl XI was to his son what Philip II of Macedon had been to Alexander the Great. He left his prince a strong and stable state, a full treasury, and a mighty army. Karl XI died in 1697 of stomach cancer, and young Karl, just 15 years old, ascended to the throne as Karl den Tolfte, Karl XII. Historians do debate whether he was too young for the throne, for like most 15-year-olds, he was adventurous and impatient. Once he rode through Stockholm at breakneck speed, smashing every window with his sword. Would a few more years of guidance by his father have helped him become a better statesman? Still, the many schemers and foreign diplomats who sought to exploit the boy king for their own advantage were soon to be deeply disappointed. Karl stared them down with an inscrutable poker face, betraying no sign of weakness or insecurity. His naturally frigid temperament and his taciturnity were his best shield in the first months of his reign.
They thought I was too young to rule the land. Just as they failed to understand how to rule. My time has come. I was chosen by heaven. Say my name when you pray to the sky. See Carolus Rex.
But despite his youth, Karl had clear ideas about how to run the show. Unlike other kings before him, the estates had to swear their oath of allegiance to him not after, but before his coronation. Karl would not ask for their obedience, nor would he make any concessions to his rule. His authority was to be absolute, and not linked to obligations or promises to those who were subjugated to him by natural order. On the day of his coronation, he ordered the members of the parliament to walk on foot towards the ceremony. Only he, the soon-to-be king, clad in full royal regalia, was to be welcomed by the church on horseback. Inside the sanctuary, Karl climbed a high throne, draped in golden cloth and scarlet damask, and took his seat on a chair of silver. By the grace of God, he was anointed king, Carolus Rex. After the sermon, he knelt in silent prayer. He would answer to God, as his mother had taught him, but on this earth, no one was his superior. So he took over the burdens and responsibilities of the kingdom in God's name and would lead as he saw fit. And absolute his reign would be. Karl would enter parliament and interrupt whenever he liked. When he was present, others were only allowed to speak in whispers, and Karl had no qualms about openly reprimanding his chancellor. If it came to his ears that someone had refused his commands or spoken ill of his reign, his ire could be merciless. Even from the farthest corners of the country, dissidents were dragged back to Stockholm in chains, and if found guilty, were sentenced to life in prison or the firing squad.
Hear my orders. Question me and die. What I say was said in heaven, and so it shall be done.
It seemed like Sweden was in for a rough ride, with absolute power manifesting in the hands of the boy king, who was not particularly fond of opposition. But despite his harsh demeanor, Karl was not the evil tyrant that he is often portrayed as. Quite the contrary. His character had a humane side, one in line with the ideals of enlightenment. He forbade torture and vowed to judge those around him based on personal merit. He demanded that every Swede do his duty to the state, but every bit of hardship beyond that was forbidden. Karl treated those loyal to him with a hearty respect and valued their commitment to him with benevolence and rewarding gratitude. The first year of his reign had a sobering effect on the young king. Karl, who had romanticized the duties of the monarchy, grew tired of the endless line of ambassadors and ministers constantly pleading for his judgment. The domestic, peaceful life of everyday state affairs had no appeal to him, and while he cared deeply for the well-being of his mother and sister, he otherwise did not seek the company of women. Instead, Karl sought adventure, danger, and hardship. He was a born soldier and dreamed of greatness, of the glory that his ancestors had brought to Sweden, and of a chance to prove himself. At the turn of the 18th century, the dark clouds of war once more gathered over Europe. In the south, dynasties were arming themselves for the coming Spanish War of Succession. In the north, the old enemy Denmark was forging alliances with Poland and Russia, preparing to invade Holstein. Wherever Sweden turned, it would find enemies to fight, and Karl eyed Europe with the impatient gaze of a hungry lion. War was an opportunity for Sweden to return to greatness by rightful conquest. In February 1700, Saxon troops marched into Livonia. The Danes invaded Holstein, and Russia set its sights on the Baltic provinces. What would be called the Great Northern War began. Karl heard of the news during a bear hunt. At once he returned to Stockholm, entered the parliament, and declared, "I have resolved never to begin an unrighteous war, but I have also resolved never to finish a righteous war until I have utterly crushed my enemies." With these words, Carolus Rex set out to fight his enemies and decide Sweden's future on the battlefield. The young king, absolute in his power, was to confront a coalition of enemies. His army was one of the best in Europe, a deadly tool in the hands of a skillful commander. But to safeguard the Swedish Empire, it was not enough for Karl to win a battle or two. He had to improve Sweden's strategic position, or it would be all for naught. With this in mind, he crossed the Sound like his personal Rubicon. There would be no turning back.
They thought I was too young to rule the land, just as they failed to understand how to rule. My time is now.
Now, Per, you said he inspired 2 albums.
Yes, because the Carolus Rex album is available in English and Swedish.
Aha. See. So it is 2 albums. And now, something I got to ask you. You are a Swede, and I am actually now a Swedish dual citizenship. So I'm a Swede as well, but I didn't grow up there.
Ta-da!
Yeah, hey, thank you. Can you tell them what Carolus Rex means to Swedes? Because many of the South American or Asian people might not have any idea.
Yeah, and it actually is quite difficult every time I explain it, because it doesn't make much sense. But okay, Carolus Rex is a Swedish king.
Yep.
Who was involved in the Swedish Empire time in history.
As we've seen.
And he is the lead figure of our album Carolus Rex,
Yeah.
of course. But he's considered a very controversial character in Sweden. Not because of what he historically did, but what he has become
Right.
in later times, when he has become a symbol of neo-Nazism and right-wing extremists.
And hyper-nationalism.
Yeah. And this doesn't go very well, because obviously neo-Nazism was not invented in the 17th century.
Yeah.
And also the king of Carolus Rex was quite multicultural, and so it's a bit controversial how it went down.
Yeah.
And this resulted in, when we presented the idea, we're gonna do an album about Carolus Rex, people immediately start to think, oh, you're gonna do a neo-Nazi album. No, we're gonna do a historical album about a king on the
You're gonna
17th
do a
century
neo-Nazi
in
album.
Sweden.
Yeah.
But there were people who warned us, do not do this.
Yeah.
It's gonna ruin your career because you're gonna be considered the neo-Nazis and you're gonna be considered fascists and you're gonna be considered all kind of things. And we said, we will do it because we are Sabaton and we sing about historical facts. And this is historical about a Swedish king in the 17th century. And we have nothing to do with it was not us who decided that he's gonna be a symbol of right wing in 300 years after his death.
I wonder how you would actually feel about that. But it's interesting you say that, because when I started working with you, when we started talking about stuff a couple of years ago, I have a friend from Griksbo up in Dalarna, and he said, "You sure you want to work with the Sabaton guys?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd met you guys. You're cool guys." And I knew the songs and the history. He's like, "But you know, it's supposed to be like have some connections with like neo-Nazi stuff." And I said, "No, they don't." Again, and it is definitely is 100% because of Carolus Rex, and also because you released a version in Swedish as well. You know?
Which adds to the whole thing of nationalism and these things, and it's easy to be do it in a conspiracy thinking that Sabaton is doing this in order to I don't know what all kind of people do, but it was pretty interesting. So when we released the album, we had a lot of that people were going mental about it.
Yeah.
There were people who shouting, "I'm never gonna listen to this fascist band again," and things like that. And we were expecting some things like this to happen, and but there was a few moments when we actually like enjoy this attention as well. I remember there's an interview with a Swedish journalist who came with an agenda only to destroy Sabaton.
Okay.
And he faced a very angry Joachim.
Yeah.
And he comes with accusations that has nothing to do with Sabaton at all.
Okay.
And the journalist comes without having any knowledge. He's as educated as a person, I don't know, who spent zero, who never went to a historical class.
Well, why would...
Facing Joachim.
Oh,
and
yeah.
in this, and accusing Joachim. And Joachim destroyed him so much that this article was never, you couldn't publish it. The journalist was so embarrassed about it and had no more ammunition. And it's kind of, us spending, at this time, 10 years singing about history of wars and stuff, and then you come and try to accuse us of having an agenda or something like that. When we are in that mood, we have quite a lot of experience of talking, and I do a lot of interviews. In a regular year, I would do 400 interviews. So if you come and you try to come and lecture me of what we can and cannot do in terms of Sabaton, we have the ammunition to really, we don't need to, but if you come with that approach to us, we have the ammunition to take out. And if you challenge us on our battlefield, you're gonna go down a very bad lane, that's for sure.
I can picture like that journalist not realizing that, like I can see angry Joachim. Let's get a picture of Joachim. Okay, look at Joachim. Can you picture him angry and it's like a bear and the journalist is like poking him with a stick and stuff just to see what happens? But how can you not prepare for an interview? Like if you're the journalist going to talk to you guys about it, how could he not have done, that's what journalists are supposed to do, is research the topic before talking to the person they're interviewing so they know what they're talking about.
In this case, he was prepared in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Not by any historical facts,
but
by only the angle of that you have just done something that should be racist.
Right. And according to these people, it should be racist.
Yeah.
If you are a journalist in the future and you're going to be interviewing the guys in Sabaton, particularly about historical events, you may want to do a little research ahead of time so you know something about those historical events and can put them into a relevant context when you're talking to these guys that spend their entire life writing about those things and learning about those things. So keep that in mind for future episodes of Sabaton History.
Say my name when you pray to the sky. Carolus Rex. To the sky. To the Lord the Protector. Make it bow to my will. To the
Thank you everybody for watching, and thank you everybody for supporting. And those who don't do it, click the bell, subscribe, and become a patron. Thank you very much.
Wow. That was really interesting. I love the Sabaton history. Well, they're like little documentaries, really. Indy Nidell does a great job as the spokesperson and the historian, and he always has a member of the band there with him. So that was very interesting, very, very interesting. And not only did it tell the story of the song, of the history, but it also explained, some of the backlash that the band got, for teaching this story in song. So, yeah, that was I hope you enjoyed that. That was so interesting. I am going to be doing more Sabaton history, and doing them as premieres so that we can talk in the live chat, and probably those will be reserved for the weekends. And yeah, I mean, what better way to be entertained with their incredible heavy metal music, and also get to learn something. So I think that's really cool. A cool way to learn. So thank you all for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed this, and love and light to you and yours. Always remember to make a good first impression, because we don't get a second chance at it. And until next time, guys, take care of yourselves and each other.